Christmas, as you might be able to tell from our very festive jumpers
Indeed.
and our festive backgrounds.
Yeah, back with a jumper again. You've actually got yourself a new one.
Yes.
I think I'm still with my 2023 version.
Well, I actually forgot what yours looked like, so I think we've coordinated.
That is incredible. Absolutely amazing coordination.
Yeah, very good coordination. But I also can't believe that this is the second festive episode of the Power Up podcast, which means we have been going well over a year now, which is...
Yes. And thank you, everybody, for listening.
Yeah, absolutely. And we were thinking long and hard about what we should do for this year's festive episode, given that we are so close to the big day. And we thought, let's still give it the sort of leadership and the valuable lessons, but let's do it in a festive way. So what better example of leadership than the man in the red suit himself, Santa? So today we are going to explore 10 leadership lessons from Santa. And now, obviously, not everyone celebrates Christmas, but I think we can all recognise the amazing qualities that make Santa a particularly good leader.
Absolutely. And I have to credit you, Lisa, with your genius idea of coming up with this idea of using, let's call it a metaphor, shall we? We don't all have to necessarily subscribe to this, but, the metaphor of Santa and his worldwide global operation.
Yeah.
I think is a great metaphor we can use for talking through the qualities of what it takes to be a great leader. So some fun points and definitely 10 actually quite serious points in terms of you enhancing your own personal leadership.
Absolutely.
Lessons you can take forward into 2025.
Yeah. So should we kick off with the first one?
Yeah.
Is visionary leadership. So I think that Santa's vision is very clear, bringing joy to the world and delivering gifts and bringing smiles and festive spirit to every corner of the globe. And I think that it's clear to say that the elves, the reindeers, everybody knows why they're doing what they're actually doing. And that's a key lesson in leadership, isn't it? Because there's lots of research around that. Do you want to talk a bit about that?
I would say actually very cleverly has got kind of a bit of a purpose and vision all wrapped up in one here. Knows what he's got to do and is very much on purpose, as you say, bringing joy and smiles to children, and adults around the world. So
once they've done the shopping, obviously.
One cannot underestimate the importance of having or providing a really clear vision. I know this has been said before and we're saying it again now, but how many times I know as an executive coach, I'm on the receiving end of people telling me they're not completely clear about the direction of the business or their team or their department. So whether or not a vision is kind of out there at a global level, it might not be at a local level, country level, or even at a team level.
Yeah.
But one thing that people do enjoy is they enjoy being part of something that is greater than actually what they're doing individually. If they can understand how their specific role is contributing to something bigger and the importance of that role, that, no question at all, fuels their motivation. Is that people lose track of the fact they're just doing a job in isolation, and they lose track of how significant that part is to the greater good of the organisation.
I mean, an example of that is a company that's very busy, particularly on my doorstep, and I think your doorstep as well, and that's Amazon. Jeff Bezos, his mission and purpose for the organisation is to be the Earth's most client-centric company. So that really helps guide the decisions and actions of everybody that works for Amazon. It's something much greater than the tasks that you're performing.
He has subsequently stepped down from the CEO role, but he's left that legacy.
Yeah,
that is very much, very much at the heart. A great example. So I think the question for you, anyone as a leader, the real exam question here is, if we were to go and test your team, do they understand the team's vision and mission? And do they understand what part they play in that? That's a real test. You cannot over communicate this. You literally have to tell people over and over again. And even when you have told teams, they love to say, no, I don't actually know what direction we're doing or where we're going.
Yeah.
It's not.
And communicating it, not just in what you're saying, but what you're doing and how you're relating what you're doing to that overarching purpose. And even, visually, having things that reinforce that as well.
Keep repeating it in many ways as you can until it's absolutely embedded in people's conscious and unconscious minds. So they're really clear.
So the second quality that is absolutely displayed by Santa is his ability to build and empower a high performance team. Everybody from the elves to the people that plan his route around the world, absolutely everybody knows their role and is trusted by him to do their job and do it well, which creates a fantastic environment for people to work in, and one where people feel empowered to deliver their best.
I mean, a task of that enormity, of that scale, of that importance, I mean, you really have to rely. You have to be, no man is an island, no person is an island. Have to be able to rely on your team. Surrounding yourself with talented individuals that you don't just then employ those people based on their talent, but you put your trust in that talent and you trust them to go and do what you can do better than you can do it. That is surely one of the absolute bedrocks of creating a high performance team. When people feel trusted, they live up to that level of expectation. If you give somebody something to do and then you're constantly checking to see whether they're doing it, you're basically indicating to that person you can't be trusted.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, what does it really matter if you let someone down in any case, because you don't really feel responsible. But when you are trusted to do your work, trusted to carry out that task, and other people are relying on you, you unconsciously take on much more responsibility.
Yeah.
So it's a really, really key thing.
And I think that there was a Gallup poll that was done, and obviously plenty of others, that people are up to sort of a quarter more productive when they feel trusted and empowered to do a good job without that micromanaging that sometimes goes on. So really,
it slows productivity, it lowers confidence. If you are sprinting, I always give this example, if you're trying to get your team to sprint, but you're constantly having to look over your shoulder to check, am I going in the right direction? Really does slow you down. It's very freeing when you feel that your leaders say to you, just go do. But just go do. I'll do the check-ins with you. I trust you to make the right decisions at the right time with the right resources, and trust the team to work with each other to produce those outcomes. It doesn't mean you completely move yourself, but it is essentially the team feel trusted by you, and that's a big, big difference.
And importantly, I mean, obviously Santa never gets it wrong, because I don't remember a Christmas where I didn't actually get my presents on time. But it's also important that leaders create an environment where, if something does go wrong, that people can take the learnings from that and fail safely.
Yes.
And that they are supported, in remedying that and learning from that going forward. It's
a bit like the kind of difference, isn't it, between leadership and management. We're managing resources. It's got to deliver a certain number of parcels, a certain number of people in a certain period of time with a certain number of resources. And that is the job of managing. But ultimately, leading is setting a vision and then empowering people to achieve that vision. And that really is what we're talking about here. The job of management is the one that we always start with management, and then we have to prize our way and let go of those habits that actually got you the job, or potentially of being a leader of people.
Yeah.
You started as a manager, which makes it always so much more difficult, because how we got the job in the first place.
And that has become your identity for often quite a long period of time. So to let, it is a period of letting go a little bit, isn't it?
Feedback in all the reports all the time. I was even discussing with somebody yesterday, saying this person just needs to learn to step away, be a leader, and trust the team.
Yeah.
It's not that they don't necessarily even trust the team per se, but they're just in the habit. They're so deeply ingrained of managing things, they haven't learned to step away and let other people take responsibility, and that is the job of
to allow enough time to actually focus on that bigger picture and make sure that you can't possibly do it all.
All right, quality number 3.
Quality number 3, managing deadlines and delivering under pressure. I mean,
surely important.
The ultimate deadline. You don't want anyone waking up excitedly going down the stairs to discover, sorry,
delivery.
He's a little bit late.
Yeah. Not even negotiable. Just no. Consequences are just not even fathomable in any shape or form.
No.
No.
But, I mean, delivering billions of gifts to every corner of the world, not only requires the ultimate in planning and preparation, but it also requires everybody to stay fairly calm under pressure. I mean, I'm sure the run up to Christmas and the making of toys and all the gifts is quite a stressful endeavor, or could be quite a stressful endeavor, but they seem to be able to do it in a very calm and efficient way.
Got to rely on that supply chain.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got to have good relationships with your suppliers here, and everyone needs to know what they're doing, when they've got to do it by.
Yeah.
Critical, very critical. So this is really the leadership lesson here is about you all get the same amount of time. Some people just are better at managing that time. And I think the real secret, particularly with deadlines, is not managing the time in the moment. It's managing the time in advance.
Yes.
Knowing that at such a point, we are going to be in a situation where the wiggle room is going to be very tiny.
Yeah.
Therefore, meticulous planning is absolutely super critical. Actually, I'm thinking about, I went to watch the National Television Awards this year.
Yeah.
I was really impressed and thinking about what an amazing time management exercise it is, actually, particularly the television awards are recorded live. And it's every single second is magical. These people coming on stage, announcing the winner. You've got the winners coming up. You've got the integrating that with other bits moving on the stage. And then the adverts come in, and it's every tiny second organised, and it's all down to pre-planning. It's all deciding what you're going to do in advance.
And again, going back to the communication piece, ensuring everybody is on the same page in terms of the outcome, but also the plan to get there, making sure that everybody knows their role and can do their job in order to meet the deadlines.
I would give a little plug here, actually, for one of our clients, Deloitte, because we do a lot of events with them. And one of the lessons I take from them is that they plan things so well in advance. They're so well organised that they execute multiple client events every year.
Yeah.
Absolute perfection. And the lesson from it is it is down to when we go live, everything works. But everything works because of the planning. And I think the challenge, if I'm speaking to somebody here who is running a smaller business, we tend to think we're a little bit more forgiving. I think people are a little bit more forgiving of themselves. They allow themselves too much latitude because they think they're working on their own. But you shouldn't. You should get into, we know that we've had to do that. It was one of the big things that we focused on, was getting ahead of ourselves all the time. We were very reactive.
And the deadline is, you want to, it's a bit like planning, I've got a lot of people coming for Christmas lunch.
Yeah.
I don't want the stress of thinking what we're having for pudding on Christmas Eve. My deadline actually for getting all of that organised is actually, the presents actually are already done and wrapped, I have to say.
My goodness me.
Because I've got all of the food to organise, so my deadline is actually way before the deadline, the actual deadline. Sorry, am I making you a bit nervous now?
Wrapping, I haven't even bought the paper yet. I haven't bought the presents yet.
But just because I'm anticipating the complexity of what needs to be delivered on time, my deadline gives me a lot of wiggle room, ahead of time.
Well,
I think that's
project management supreme that you are. I would expect nothing less. So lesson. I guess, again, question, how would you rate yourself listening to this now, giving yourself a score, scale of 1 to 10, 10 being super, super planned, organized in advance versus a bit lastminute.com, give yourself a score and then think about how you could improve that. Put some new disciplines in place for next year and you'll feel less stressed. Your clients, your staff will experience a much more organized and much more pleasant experience.
Good. You may be less bothered, you might be able to cope with it yourself, but the impact it has on people around you is, well, particularly, people that are like me and other colleagues that we work with, we don't like feeling out of control, so, by putting a lot of focus on pre-planning and planning ahead of time, even if a leader is able to cope with it, it means that it's a more harmonious, productive environment around them.
Yeah.
So number 4.
Quality number 4.
Data-driven decision-making. I think that, we all know that Santa has a nice list and a naughty list. So he utilizes the data that he gathers throughout the year to inform where people are going. What do you reckon? You on the nice list or the naughty list this year?
Trying to do my best, Lisa. What you put in is what you get out. So the thing about data as not being a particularly data-driven person myself, but I've learned as a business owner from my work with various consultants and people I associate with that the data will set you free. And the data doesn't lie. What is the data telling us?
Yeah.
And having that data relies upon good quality input. Good quality input relies upon good systems and good process. Good systems and good process relies on good discipline of using those.
Yeah.
And we know as a business that putting the discipline in place, putting the process in place, and then having the discipline to use those processes consistently gives you high quality data. You can make much better informed decisions.
Yeah, 100%.
Knows this. It's not, again, it's like all of these things we're saying here. Common sense isn't always common practice. People know what to do. They're not always doing what they know. Every person in an organization has a part to play. If you're a salesperson, you know that you have to put in data.
Yeah.
Data in that CRM allows you to be able to be more predictive in terms of your sales pipeline, etc.
And I think it's important that leaders use quantitative and qualitative data. So, for example, Starbucks, in informing the drinks that they put on their menu, they will use hard data in terms of sales information, but they will also use qualitative data in terms of the conversations and the feedback that they get from customers. So it's making sure that data is not just focused on numbers, but it's backed up.
And, I would say that, data itself is not in itself the whole story. It's your interpretation of the data.
Yeah.
We get data on people's quantitative data on people's competencies. We then have to interpret that data the best we can to understand what the patterns and what the themes are, and that's good leadership. But it helps you inform better quality decision making. So make sure you've got good systems, good processes, and good disciplines around using them. Okay, excellent.
Quality 5.
Yeah, quality 5.
Recognizing and rewarding contributions. So we've already mentioned the nice list and the naughty list. And rather than the naughty list being used punitively, it is encouraged by parents throughout the year to encourage reflection, for children to reflect on, what can I actually do to make sure I make the good list rather than the naughty list. I mean, I'm sure that's not necessarily the case in every household. I think I've used it more punitively.
I think we can remember when our children were younger, it was great leverage.
Yes.
Great leverage. At a time you were really, really busy.
Yeah.
It gives you a little bit of extra leverage. If you don't do this, these are the consequences. Won't be coming. So there's something in that, isn't there? And we know, back to that classic adage, that what gets rewarded gets done. And where there's that big reward, if you behave yourself, so to speak, then the reward is larger. But taking the message more seriously, of course, that I think it's important that people do know what actually is important and what do we want to reward people for.
Yeah, reinforce the behaviours you do want.
Yeah. One of the questions I ask leaders is, are your people aware of what the most important behaviours are in this culture, in this organisation, that would aid their progress forward, their acceleration forward?
Yeah.
What gets rewarded here? What are the behaviours you're looking for that you are most likely to reward in terms of promotion and prosperity and bonus, etc., etc.?
Yeah.
They may be written down, they may not be. Sometimes there are lots of invisible rules.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're saying to your people in an organisation, for me to be able to progress here, what are the behaviours I really need to be showing up?
And it's also, the more subtle methods of rewarding behaviour as well. So, acknowledging great contribution in a team meeting or a job well done on a particular project that doesn't necessarily involve an accolade or a promotion, but that generally people are being recognised for their contribution and feel valued, for their contribution.
Yeah. And as you say, these tiny sort of micro rewards, simple thank yous. I'm saying to a lead the other day, just sending someone a note after a meeting and just a single sentence, don't make it a big thing. Loved the way you asked that difficult question.
Yeah.
Took a lot of courage. Well done. That's it.
Yeah.
I think leaders can sometimes underestimate the significance and the impact of that single little thank you or a word of encouragement or an acknowledgement of something that somebody has done. And it's so powerful. I was actually reading someone's 360 results yesterday, and clearly someone had remembered how this leader had recognized them and appreciated them for having to work into the early hours of the morning on one occasion to meet a customer deadline.
Yeah.
The fact that they'd actually remembered it and written it in the report as an example showed that leader had gone out of his way, in this case, to make that acknowledgement.
And I think those sorts of, more subtle acknowledgements actually, they hold more emotional impact than maybe a certificate or a promotion. I mean, obviously a promotion is a pretty big thing, but, than the more formal, some of the more formal things, I think, absolutely.
Yeah.
So quality number 6.
Quality number 6, yes.
Yeah. As the world speeds along, even Santa has to remain agile and innovative in his. Many years ago, the elves would have been making wooden toys and more traditional toys for the children. But now, VR headsets and all manner of things that I probably don't even know myself, but, more technology-related gifts. They have had to adapt their ways of working, their tools, and to be able to think and stay ahead in terms of the toys that are going to be on the Christmas hit list for the children each year.
And I have heard, apparently, the word is that, they've introduced AI as well, optimise their deliveries, optimise production. Who would have known it, eh?
Finger on the pulse.
Finger on the pulse.
Are they using AI and GPS? And, do you think he has GPS on his slate? He's got to have GPS, because how can you go through all of those different routes at that sort of speed? Hopefully it's not the sort that sends lorries down country lanes.
Faster because of the AI planning tools enable to deliver much faster to a smaller number of people in a shorter period of time.
Yeah.
I mean, we're going to see early delivery. Better get those kids off to bed pretty early this year. Yeah.
Good point.
So agility, big word at the moment, huge word. So much so that we're even running an event on the very same subject.
On the 15th of January, if anyone's interested.
The agility advantage. What's our point? Our point is quite simple, and that is that we are living in a world where we are experiencing change at a pace and rate that probably none of us have ever experienced before. Change has always been there. We've always talked about this, but it's this pace of that change is just nothing like we've ever expected in the past. The challenge is, can we as human beings keep up with that pace of change? We have the ability to change at a lightning pace, but then we have to bring an organization with us
Yes.
to be able to change at a rate and pace that that technology is affording us.
Mm.
And that's where the human technology, remember, we are geared around protection. Our brains, a lot of our headspace and agency is given to making sure that we don't make mistakes.
Yeah.
And therefore, we've got one system that is trying to mitigate and lower risk. And also, we have a system that actually is allowing us to change at a faster pace.
Yeah.
But
The
the risk comes first.
Yeah.
That's where we're really focusing our efforts, is helping the human technology be able to change faster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think part of that, and thinking about the innovation point as well, and we'll be talking about it at the event, but in order to speed up, actually organizations need to slow down. So in order to innovate, for example, in order for Santa and his elves to think about the next trends, they need to actually slow down, take a step back, take in all the data, and have that space to create and innovate. Because if you're just focusing on speed, your eyes can't see anything, anything other than the delivery. So, that's an important part of this as well, is to actually slow down.
Yeah, agility doesn't necessarily mean go faster.
Yeah, absolutely.
More about being able to navigate your way, and as you say, be able to step back and see, well, which direction do we need to go, and where we will get the most benefit from embracing, where can these ideas be applied? It's not just speed. In fact, I was reading an article recently, I think it was in Harvard Business Review, saying the common mistake that people get into, think, oh, we've got this agility, we can try lots of things at the same time. It's just too much going on.
Yeah.
And therefore diversifying too much, trying too many things at the same time isn't necessarily going to give you higher returns in the long term. So your point around slowing down is important.
Yeah. Number 7, leading with joy and optimism. Well, I think we can safely say, I don't think I've ever seen Santa with a grumpy face. I think he is the epitome of joy and optimism, or what we see is the epitome of joy and optimism. If he was saying to the elves, it's a few more people in the world this year, I'm not sure. We'll give it our best shot, but are we going to actually be able to deliver on time? He needs to, deliver a very optimistic and upbeat message and spread joy not only around the world, but to his team as well. His behaviors, like a leader's behaviors, are infectious and will affect everybody around them.
You've got to say, it's a consistent brand, whether in New York,
yes,
Coast, West Coast, and that's probably more of a Western thing, this, but wherever you go, there is complete consistency. I have to say, over the years when my kids were young, we did one or two occasions where their old Saint Nick was having a bit of a bad day. The kids didn't come out very happy.
Isn't there? What was it, Home Alone or something like that? Where the Santa is really grumpy, doesn't want to be actually drunk and grumpy.
Indeed, yeah.
But generally speaking,
consistency is key. And we all know that if you are spreading joy and optimism and you're doing that consistently, again, that creates huge, huge confidence. We talk about this idea of a positive contagion.
Yeah.
Your state becomes your team state. The way you go in the building is the way people leave the building.
Yeah.
Your emotional state rubs off on other people. That gives them a feeling, that consistent feeling gives them a feeling of confidence. They always make the joke about the fact that the leader who says, my door is always open, but then why does nobody want to go in? Because they're not quite sure how you're going to be. It's a good day or a bad day. It's a good day to speak to the boss or not. That's not what you want. What you want is consistency.
Yeah, absolutely.
The question the exam question here is, how do you leave people feeling? After every meeting, after every town hall, after every email, how most of the time, I'm not saying you shouldn't have to have, sometimes you have to have firm words with people and you have to provide.
Yeah, it's not blind optimism.
No, not at all. But generally, how do you leave people feeling? I come back to doing these 360 reports. I'm fascinated. I see hundreds of these, hundreds of them every year, and I'm doing debriefs on them with hundreds of people. I actually thought the other day that I was going to speak to our research company. It would be quite interesting to look at those reports where people are not just doing well, but just like off the charts, extraordinary leaders. And to actually use sort of AI to glean across and say, what are the words that people are using in the verbatim comments that are actually using to make a note of them, actually, to describe these people.
Yeah.
Because I have a very strong suspicion that aside from all the qualities that you need to be an extraordinary leader, the one thing that stands head and shoulders above everything else is how you make people feel.
100%.
Because when I look at the comments, they lead with, this person cares for me, they've got empathy, they make me feel good, they're positive, optimistic, they've got an energy, they inspire me.
And that is what we use to describe, it's that sort of emotive type language and connection that helps us describe an experience, doesn't it, of being around somebody.
Yeah.
So I would totally agree with you. I think absolutely that's got to be top of the list.
So keep asking yourself the question, how am I leaving people feeling? How will I leave people feeling in every conversation? Can I find a way as a leader to say something, do something that is genuine and authentic? But just remember that leaving people in a slightly better state is the one thing that you can do as a leader. Yeah. Don't underestimate the impact you can have in terms of making that compliment or bringing a bit of a lighter tone to something, and remembering that sometimes we are having meetings around difficulties and problem solving. When you've finished all of that, let's remind people about the great work we're doing. Yeah. And elevate the conversation slightly. Yeah,
absolutely.
Okay, quality number 8.
Number 8. There is no better example of a global, complex, hybrid operation than delivering the gifts to all the children in a very complex sequence of...
well-oiled operation.
Yeah, well-oiled operation than the deadline of Christmas Eve.
Multiple cultures, multiple languages, countries, time zones, working patterns.
Yeah.
It's a complex operation right there.
Yeah, absolutely. And, increasingly for leaders, and again, a big topic of conversation for us in the work that we're doing is, how leaders can lead effectively when they're operating across multiple locations and they have team members that are, some are working remotely, some might be working in a hybrid way, others might be more face-to-face. So it's a complex environment that we are all operating in, and getting ahead of that and getting hold of that, is a really important lesson and a really important quality for leaders.
The heart of it, I would say that it's the willingness of people to work in a cohesive and collaborative way. And that is an intentional point of view. Yeah. Long said this about teaming and collaboration. We are largely focused in a world where we're rewarded for our own efforts. We've got our own KPIs. Outside of that, you have to be quite intentional about working collaboratively. Yeah. Because although it is there, it's a selfish world. I know that organizations say, when you want to work collaboratively, you'll be rewarded. But in reality, we know we haven't done our bit. Yeah. I haven't met my target. That's the most important thing. Yeah. So we are centered in a world that rewards individuals, but we're expecting people to work in a collaborative way. So what we all have to do for this to work is we all have to sign up to the idea that if we do all work in a collaborative way, then we all benefit from getting our individual outcomes met. And that absolutely is the case. So the work I do with teams is what I'm trying to get them to do is, whilst there's no specific, or sometimes there is, There isn't always a specific reward for working collaboratively, but to recognize that if you do, then your individual outcomes will be met much easier as a result.
And I think it links obviously very strongly back to the very first quality, which is about visionary leadership and having a really clear sense of purpose and a clear set of goals and a clear plan that everybody understands, buys into, signs up to, for the greater good. So yeah, 100%, absolutely.
The challenge question here again is what are you doing? What could you be doing to be more intentional about helping out other teams that you work with? Remember that great exercise that we do where we look at the interdependencies in teams, and we ask them to think about how does your role, what do you do that allows someone else to do their role well? Does that other person you're working with understand how what they do helps you do your role better? So that understanding between the different roles, even having the conversation, it's very, very powerful. Is I didn't realize that was that important to you. I hadn't really understood how critical that data was to you, or how speaking to that person in a way could actually undo the good work you've done. It's just understanding the interdependencies in teams helps build the willingness to act in a more collaborative, cohesive way. It doesn't happen by itself. That's the point. You can ask for it, but unless there is a good reason for doing it and you understand it, it's not the first thing that people think about doing. So the more effort, the more time you spend on what does it mean to work in a collaborative way, and people understanding those interdependencies, you will get more collaboration as a result.
Very important point. So number 9, work-life. Well, we shy away from using the word work-life balance, as discussed on a previous episode, but work-life integration or whole life integration. I think Santa seems to do it very well. Obviously, he's very, very busy this time of year. Probably doesn't get too much time off, reward himself with too much time off this time of year. But he and Mrs. Claus have the whole of the rest of the year to maintain and achieve a little bit of balance and focus on some of the other things aside to the activities he has to complete in the festivities.
He would do well with Mr. Trump's initiative not to tax people on overtime in December. He must be very happy about that.
Yes.
So, yeah, I mean, huge effort, obviously, this time of year. And that's the reality, isn't it?
Yeah.
Most people's work, whether in retail, manufacturing, pharma, like our world in learning and development, it goes in cycles.
Yes.
And there are certain times of the year where it's pedal to the metal, you're out in the fast lane, very little breathing time, it's go, go, go. And then there are other times when it's downtime, where you need to make sure that you plan your world according to that. It's no point being a retailer and saying, well, we'll close during December because that's where they make, 60% of the profits or even more. So, yeah, it's just understanding what does your life cycle over the course of a year look like, and how are you going to plan for your downtime as well as you do plan for the uptime.
And I think as leaders to role model a whole life integration. So having your team understanding that you have a commitment that this is just an example, but 3 times a week you're going to be at home for reading your kids a bedtime story. Make sure that you role model that, and you absolutely do that, and encourage them to do what is whatever is important to them. Understanding what the world beyond the work version of your team, and supporting them in actually achieving that sense of balance and integration of all aspects.
It's always going to be possible for you to have this perfect balance. So I think it's important not to beat yourself up on those days where perhaps you can't be there for your kids or your partner. It's just the reality of life. What's important is that what we're advocating here is you have to be intentional about the downtime.
Yes.
And when you have that downtime, do that as well as you do the uptime.
Yeah.
If you've got time at home, you've got time with your kids, don't do a half-baked version of that when you're there. Do it really well. You know, if you're going to take time off for a weekend away or go on vacation, do it well. Be a professional holiday taker. You know, do it really, really well and make sure that you are completely present. And that's what we really need about the balance.
And normalizing that for your team through your behavior. So we're at number 10, the final leadership lesson from Santa. And it's a really important one around leaving a legacy. And I think that Santa, you know, the legacy that he leaves and the feelings and the activities he inspires goes way beyond, you know, the work that he does himself. You know, he inspires others to give and share and connect and, you know, come together and spread joy and happiness themselves. So his legacy is way bigger than the activities that he does day to day.
And he's been doing this since the 4th century.
I know, and he's looking pretty good on it too, isn't he?
Saint Nick. I mean, he's been, you know, I mean, he's got to give it to him. You know, that's some consistency there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, in terms of the lessons for leaders is actually, you know, thinking beyond your tenure as a leader in the organisation. You know, what is the legacy? Getting clear on the legacy that you want to leave and what you want to establish or encourage or build culturally in an organisation that you want to live on way after you've you know finished yourself.
Jim Collins, one of Jim Collins' examples here, where he talks about the idea of you're not a time teller, you're a clock builder. And you're building a clock that carries on ticking well after you've gone.
Yeah.
That is the true measure of a leader's legacy.
Yeah.
You ask a leader, what do you want your legacy to be? It's an important question. What do you want your legacy? It doesn't matter whether you're a department head, a leader of a very small team or of a very large organization. How do you want to leave that team when you go? What do you want people to say about your time, your tenure as a leader of those people, department, or entire enterprise? And focus your thinking and thoughts around that, both in terms of perhaps what you've achieved, what you've put in place, but also how you've made people feel and how did you impact the culture in the time that you were there.
Yeah.
These are really important questions to think about. And I think as you go into the break and you have more time to think about your own personal leadership, what is the legacy you want to leave behind? The people you lead and the organizations that you serve.
Yeah, it's easy to get caught up in the what.
Exactly.
You know, but it comes full circle back to our first quality around why, why you're doing and the impact that you want to have.
And it's far more inspiring and meaningful when you think about your job and your work in that way, beyond just the doing, as you say, the what, the facts and the hitting the targets, etc. It's going beyond that, thinking about that, and then reminding the leaders that you lead also of the same thing. What's the legacy collectively we want to leave behind? No one is in these jobs forever, particularly the tenure of C-suite officers, CEOs, probably between 3 and 5 years. And quite often people, switch their jobs out every couple of years.
Yeah.
So thinking about that in terms of you haven't got long to make a really strong impression and leave a legacy. So, and you think about the people that in organizations that, some of the great leaders, Steve Jobs, I think about him as an example, what amazing legacy he has left behind. Putting aside his sometimes style of leadership that could be a bit bumpy, but legacy goes beyond that.
Yeah.
What's the bigger picture? Yes, everyone has their down days and they have moments where they're not their best, but you're going to ultimately be judged on the legacy that you leave behind. And that's why I think Steve Jobs is a great example of that.
Yeah, no, it's very, very powerful point. And Martin, that brings us to the end of our 10 lessons. So I think it's clear to say that Santa is not just for Christmas.
No.
He can give us lessons throughout the whole year. He is like the gift that keeps on giving.
Yep. So there's so many things in there. I'd ask you, we'll do a little review of these 10 qualities: visionary leadership, building a high performance team, managing deadlines under pressure, using good quality data, recognizing and rewarding contributions, staying agile and innovative, leading with joy and optimism. You could turn this into a song. Leading a global hybrid operation, talked about the importance of that, work-life integration, and then finally leaving a legacy. Combine all those together, give yourself a rating on those, think about where you can get the biggest impact, think about where where we all need to perhaps which of these could we really be great at, which do we need to continue to grow at.
Actually, that would be a great thing for us to do. I think we'll pull together a bit. Well, obviously we'll pull together a power tool, but something that you can actually use to start really thinking about what you will do to embrace that quality and demonstrate that quality in 2025. We'll put that into the show notes as well.
Absolutely. So, yeah.
The final episode of 2024.
Yes.
Unbelievable.
Thank you so much for everybody for supporting our podcast, tuning in and listening. It is growing. Excited to hear that. I'm excited to hear the feedback that people like, the sort of eclectic mix of different topics.
Eclectic presenters.
Yeah, indeed. We thoroughly enjoy doing it. It makes us grow. We research each of these subjects. We've got some really good speakers lined up and guests, shall I say, lined up for the new year. So really excited about the next season as well. And of course, we're always pleased to hear from you, our listeners, as to any particular topics you'd like to cover as we continue.
Why we do it, we want to make it as valuable as possible and speak to the things that you need help with and you need support, throughout the year.
Yeah. And let me just finish by saying that, let's remind ourselves why we're here. We're here, Power Up. The Power Up podcast is about helping leaders and individuals to be the very best, to bring the best of themselves, to utilize their natural born gifts, talents, strengths, and to utilize them in a meaningful way. Power Up, really at the heart, is people using this power. You have way more power than perhaps people necessarily use.
Yeah.
Going inside and understanding where that power lies and giving yourself the gift of using that power, you are contributing not just to yourself, but you're contributing to society in a much more holistic way. Because using your gifts. And this is really at the heart about empowering people to use these gifts and these talents. So my wish for you, I'm sure our wish for you, is for you to use those God-given talents in the most meaningful way in 2025.
Absolutely. And in the meantime, to have a very wonderful Christmas. And we are very excited about the podcast and lots of other things in the new year, and we look forward to sharing those with you.
However you decide, wherever you are in the world, and however you decide to enjoy this festive period, people celebrate in different ways, different meanings to it. We wish you the very best in having that time. Show compassion to people, love to people, share in the gift of receiving and giving, and look out for those people that perhaps are slightly less fortunate, and reach out to those people as well. So,
absolutely.
Okay, fantastic. See you on the other side.
Yeah, see you next year.
Yeah, see you on the other side. Thank you. Bye.